dry since last year. And as we all know, 2023 was probably one of the best years for gaming. We got two of the best remakes in horrors, reminders that PCs aren't always the best places to play certain games, a reminder that Call of Duty should be a dead and buried franchise, and furries got ripped big time. But as per usual, we've got an assload of indie games as well that just sweep throughout the year. We got games like Cocoon, Dave the Diver, Pizza Tower, and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the year, something was released into the world that absolutely soloed everything that came out before it. And that game is Lethal Company. Now, this is one of those games that just came out. I had never heard a single thing about it and only just saw bits and pieces of it while scrolling through Twitter. It wasn't until one of my best buddies, the Big Forcely, gifted it to me that I finally decided, you know what, fuck it, let's see what all this is about. And let me tell you something, I was not expecting what I got myself into. But before that, a little bit of history. Lethal Company is a survival horror game developed by a furry. Yay! It seems like there's two things that they're good at: making games and making art. And this one's name in particular is Zeekers. And if you look at his handle, both on Twitter and on the game itself, you'll notice an acronym that you may be familiar with, and that is Roblox. Yes, before making one of the best games of 2023, Zeekers was already creating games on Roblox, and apparently not knowing OBS existed. I don't really play Roblox unless I'm forced to, so I didn't really check any of these games out myself, but I assume, judging by these big-ass numbers, I think it's safe to say he was reasonably popular on this platform. But let's just say I'm sure he became a household name after the release of Lethal Company. YouTube videos gaining millions upon millions of views, to some of the platform's biggest YouTubers covering it on their channels, to hey, even one of my buddy Scrake's doing a deep dive on the lore of the game, which I voiced in, by the way, and I was apparently compared to AI, and I still don't know how I should feel about that, to even being so popular that it outsold the latest Call of Duty. I do think it's safe to say that this game isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Or is it? Now, I'll admit this could 100% be a me-exclusive problem because I do have bad tendencies to keep my mind distracted with other stuff that prioritizes my time, causing me to not really know what's going on in the world around me. But I feel like the hype for Lethal Company has kinda died down, and to an extent that I haven't felt like with any other game. Like, yeah, I'd be lying if I was to say that the game is dead. Far from it. Steam charts are showing me green numbers, so that must mean it's good. But I don't know, man. I already feel as if though a lot of people stopped talking about this game at a speed I'm not incredibly comfortable with. So that's why I'm making this video for you today, to give you all a deep dive in this gaming masterpiece and why I feel that you all need to give this game a go and keep the discussion on this game alive for many years to come, unless we want it to be sent to that purgatory of niche games. So on top of me recommending you this game, I also kind of want to talk about why I'm worried about the future of Lethal Company. So for those of you that for some reason does not know, Lethal Company is a horror game. Could have probably fooled me. And the main goal of the game is to go to 8 different moons and collect an assload of scrap to sell to this company we know nothing about, but we like money, and according to TF2, greed is good, so we'll take these jobs without any hesitation. And after a cycle of about 4 days, if you're able to reach the quota amount, you get to do it all over again, but this time with added inflation. And if you're not able to reach said quota, well, guess who's the imposter? It's like the space version of Amazon. And that's pretty much a basic summary of the game, but believe me, there's a hell of a lot more we need to get into. The game is played through a first-person perspective. You can walk, you can jump, you can crawl, and most importantly, you can boogie. Oh shit, fuck yeah! And point, which is very funny, because you can reenact the Spider-Man meme, but it's kinda useless for anything else. Something that fans added later on in mods I feel did a much better job, but we'll get there in due time, don't worry. So I did go over the basic gameplay loop, but let's talk about how the missions are set up. Firstly, you'll start out on your ship. There's not really much going on here except being able to switch off the lights because the lighting engine is really good and Zeekers wanted you to know that. And the PC, which I'm pretty sure must give a bunch of IT nerds from the late 60s a hard-on from its retro design. And from here, you're able to select which moon you want to go to, buy equipment ranging from useful stuff to useless shit. And you're also able to do some cool stuff that I'll get to a little bit later. So from the get-go, we have access to 8 different moons, each of which having their own distinct layouts as well as their own biomes to give them that little extra dash of variety. variety. Sadly though, a lot of these biomes are reused in some instances, but these were made by just one wolf, so cut him some slack. He has yet to learn the ways of the Euphoric brothers because not all are created equally. And these moons go as followed. Experimentation, which you can consider to be the tutorial planet of the game because it's the easiest place to get your bearings and you park directly outside the main entrance. Assurance, which is another desert planet with tall rocks and shit that you'll need to navigate before being able to access the entrance. Vow, which is the planet that I get lost on 9 out of 10 times because I have the directional capabilities of a sat-nav that you bought off of Wish. Offense, which I swear is just Assurance again. March, which is a less confusing version of Vow. Rend, which is a snowy planet. Dine, which is another snowy planet. And lastly, Titan, which looks like you're scouring an oil rig. And to just add insult to injury, these last few moons are locked behind an in-game paywall because I'm assuming space fuel prices must be expensive, so I guess it's only fair that we contribute something, right? And upon landing on each moon, you need to navigate through the planet's surface until you're able to locate the main entrance, and this is usually where the fun begins. Upon entering these buildings, you're met with these large metallic hallways, sometimes broken up by these concrete structures. Sometimes it looks like you're stuck in a grain silo, and sometimes it feels like you're going through the Spencer Mansion from Resident Evil 1. And upon stepping into one of these structures, it's time to get to work, men. From here on out, it's up to you to find any and all scrap possible and return back to your ship. And to make your job way easier, you have the scanner inside your helmet to help you locate said scrap, as well as display its value. That way you can prioritize what stuff comes with you and what stays. And to make it easier for everybody, it will also display the total value of scrap that you collected in the ship, so that you can tell if you've reached your quota or not. This scanner can also help you locate the main entrances to each building, as well as locate your ship to make sure that you don't get lost. And the scrap that you find on these moons all have a range in size, so you'll find smaller items that you can store in one inventory slot, and others that will require you to carry them with both hands, meaning that you can't do jack shit until you drop them. On top of that, you may notice that when you sprint, you have a stamina gauge that gradually depletes, as well as a weight. Now, the more shit you carry, you will thankfully not become over-encumbered and can't walk like this is a Bethesda game, but your speed will be reduced, and on top of that, your stamina will deplete way faster the heavier you are. So that's just another element that you need to keep in mind when traversing these stages. But some of you might be saying to yourselves, this just sounds like some hardcore manual labor. What do we need to worry about besides a few blisters from carrying the shit? You clearly didn't watch the intro now, did you? Yes, this wouldn't be a horror game without a few monsties now, would it? And in terms of the variety, Lethal Company sure as shit isn't lacking. Now you do have some docile creatures like the roaming locusts and the manticoils, which can be accessed on the PC's bestiary by typing in the command. So I wonder what these things aren't telling us. But the rest of them, they can just piss off. So let's go down the list, shall we? Firstly, we have the baboon hawk. I don't see the resemblance to either one of these animals. We have the snare fleas, which apparently thinks consent is optional, as it wraps itself around you and your buddy's head until you take it out with a melee weapon, or just take the easy way out. We have a spore lizard, which I just like to call my widow friend, because look at him, he's so cute! And he must love you too, because when you get too close, he inks! A blob, which is a blob! I'm sure someone finds that hot. We have Alma Wade, a spider, the weeping angels, music boxes with legs that turns into sand. Fuck me, man, we are not lacking in any monster variety. And there's even a few more on here that I haven't even seen or know that they existed. Like this nutcracker with a shotgun and a mask, which I wear with the smile hours at a time. But we're not done because we have a few of my favorites here. So as followed, you have the eyeless dogs. They are dogs with no eyes, if you couldn't tell. That will have no issue killing you the second that you utter as much as a whisper, which from first-hand experience I can tell happened. They all shut up. The circuit bees, which are the funniest enemies in my opinion to take on. Run to the ship! They are on fire! And if you're also able to grab their hive, that gives you another massive payoff. Or it could be the death of you and your entire team if you fuck up. Wait, fucking close this thing before they leave. Wait. No, open! Open! What do you mean open for what? Wait, close the fucking door! Open the Thumper, which isn't the Bambi character. Or maybe he is and he just survived Chernobyl. The Force Guardians, which are these hulking titans that are into Vor. The Earth Leviathan, which is a giant worm that really loves Vor. So much so that fuck just eating you, it's got a much bigger appetite. The Loot Bug, which is the happiest enemy out of everybody because, I mean, just listen to him. And the easiest to kill, and probably the most iconic monster in this entire game, the Bracken. This white-eyed scaly fuck is probably gonna be the cause of the most amount of scares in this entire game. You see, much like the Weeping Angels enemy I mentioned for a brief second, the Bracken is the total opposite of them. The little shit will first sneak up behind you like an incel seeing a woman for the first time, but when you lay eyes on the thing for the first time, it pisses off for a brief moment to another part of the map. And the play with him is to just not stare at him for too long, unless you like acting like an owl without the neck flexibility. And then when that happens, you'll be taken into the back rooms where it'll be up to you or your teammate to retrieve whoever got killed. Or just leave them like the good friend that you are. But even with these monsters, you're still far from done. Because even the moons have a vendetta against you. Because you see, there's a whole bunch of weather conditions that can also affect whichever moon you go to. These can include eclipses, which doubles the amount of enemies, to fog, which makes you think you stumbled into Silent Hill. Hell, sometimes you can fall victim to the power of Zeus. Why my Xbox? Ow! To heavy rain and floods that can cause huge bodies of water that can drown you or cause quicksand to smother you if you're not able to get out on time. And speaking of time, there's also a time limit. When that clock strikes midnight, like it or not, that ship is leaving you and your entire crew behind. And certain enemies like the eyeless dogs as well as the Force Guardians only show up past 5 PM. So it's always a good idea to keep an eye out on what time it is. So needless to say, there is a lot of things that you need to keep track of. And it could be a little bit of a pain in the ass if you're not even able to tell the signs of what might be around you. But it's not to say that the game is entirely impossible, because sometimes they'll give you a few signs to let you know what's ahead, like for example the backrooms area that lets you know that a Bracken is in the stage, to some of the spider webs in the hallways, to the loud thumping of footsteps that do not belong to your teammates. These are just some of the things that gives you a little bit of a hint and let you know what you're dealing with, but a lot of the times you're just gonna run into some of these things without any warning, and that is exactly what I love about this game. And that is the unpredictability of each of these encounters. That's also helped on by the fact that each of these stages are procedurally generated, meaning that there is never going to be a chance you're going to get the same environment twice. To help give a little bit of an explanation as to what I mean by this, a thing that I really don't like in horror games are telegraphed scares or just giving a massive reveal to whatever's going to be pursuing you. Like, let's take Resident Evil 2 and its remake for instance, if I need a simple example. Like in the original when you see the liquor for the first time. In the original PS1 release, there's this huge cutscene that plays beforehand showing you how the thing looks, what it's capable of, for example, it being able to climb on different surfaces and its long tongue, which already kind of prepares you for the fight ahead of time, but in the remake, nah. Fuck you, you'll fight now. And that's what I love about Lethal Company's enemies. You're just randomly gonna be playing, see this thing come out of the darkness, and then you'll need to make a split decision on the fly to see how you can escape the thing. Hell, the only way you'll be able to know anything about these enemies is if you were able to remember to scan the thing before booking it out of there, so you can read up about what they are on the bestiary. So that's just all the dangers that the game has to offer as well as its core mechanics. But let's talk a little bit about the more shallow things, you know? Like, let's talk about the game's visuals. Since this was made on the Unity engine and only made by one person, don't expect Call of Duty levels of fidelity over here. Nah, just made the graphics look 10 times worse and then outsell that franchise. This game's graphics is nothing to write home about, but that doesn't mean that there's no charm to be found here. The game is cel-shaded, giving it a very cartoony look from the monsters and the crew members. Everything in this game is heavily saturated, making colors pop, as well as making darker areas near impossible to navigate without a light source. And for how good the visuals work for the type of game that this is, that wouldn't mean jack shit if there wasn't some good sound added to this game. And let me tell you, in the sound department, this is probably the best game to utilize it, and that creates one of the most immersive atmospheres I've ever played in any game. From the hum buzz of your ship to the dead silence of the outside of each moon, only broken by the sounds of the Manticoil's bees zombies and locusts, to the desolate, metallic-y, echoey noises that come from the inside of each building. Fucking hell, dude, it's just amazing. And that also extends to the actual horror when an enemy starts chasing you, when something just pierces through the silence at a moment's notice, and then all that silence is just replaced by the sounds of doors opening and closing, and your footsteps doubling as you try to run away from whatever's chasing you. Now, another thing that I need to mention with the sound being absolutely phenomenal also extends to the game's in-game voice chat. You simply can't truly experience Lethal Company with friends in your little dinky 5-member Discord channel. In order to fully get immersed into the universe, you need to use the in-game chat. From how everything just sounds normal when you're next to each other, to how it sounds when you chat to your buddies over the walkie-talkie, to the echoes of the hallways in the building, it's just amazing. Also amplified by the fact that the voices just get quieter and quieter the further away you move from each other, meaning that you can't always keep tabs on your buddies at all times by just listening to them, as they may never answer again, or maybe, unfortunately, the last thing that you'll hear from them are the screams of terror when something finally catches up to them. Oh, yeah, and sometimes it could just be this. Now, as I've previously mentioned, on the ship's PC you're able to buy certain things like equipment for your expeditions to useless shit, like a candlelit dinner table, which makes me wonder what these crewmates get up to the minute the game closes. And whilst I didn't use everything that the game has to offer, me and my buddies did go through a large chunk of the stuff that you're able to buy. Firstly, we have the basic shit like flashlights and walkie-talkies, both of which I don't think I really need to explain. This isn't exactly a lightsaber, just go outside, I'm sure you'll see one of these things somewhere. But then you can buy some cool stuff like a lockpick tool, which allows you to slowly open up locked doors if you're not able to find any keys lying around, a teleporter that can bring back the last person who used it if they're in a pinch, sadly though that doesn't extend to the items that they've picked up, a zap gun which is useful for stunning certain enemies, and a shovel for bashing creature skulls in. Just not all of them though, so don't get cocky there, Conan. Also, I guess I should mention that some of the things you're able to find that you need to sell later on, like stop signs and yield signs, can also be used as melee weapons, so yeah, cool. Get fucked now. You can also get some flashbangs, which I feel does more damage to you and your teammates than the actual enemy, so I guess this is just to do a little bit of trolling. Boys!
What?
And like I said, there are other items here that may seem a tad bit useless. It's just more to liven up the ship a little bit, but some of them do have interesting benefits that you wouldn't really think about, like using the boombox as a distraction with its funky tunes, or using the loud horn to signal your colleagues as to where the ship is, or to use a war cry for a morale boost, but that one doesn't always work all the time. 2, an extension ladder for if you really liked Death Stranding. But all in all, we never really found any need for any of these items aside from the walkie-talkie and the flashlight, because the most important tool in the whole game is without a doubt the ship's PC. Now, aside from using it to buy things and to get you from moon to moon, the computer has another mode to it, where you're able to view the other players in your team as well as the layout of the current map, both inside and outside. And on this map, you're able to locate items that pop up as these little diamonds on screen, locate other enemies that show up as these red circles, and what I personally think is the coolest thing, interact with certain items inside each building. Now, another threat that I forgot to mention is that there's a bunch of man-made shit inside each building. The 2 of which I'm aware of are the mines, which can easily be jumped over, and the turrets that are still alive and kicking, and if it catches you, well, let's just say that makes one of you. And on top of that, you may also see in your playthrough all these different doors in some hallways, some of them being open and some of them being closed. And by typing in the codes that are found on these doors into the PC, you're able to actually unlock them or lock them as you please. And on top of that, you're able to disable the turrets for a set amount of time. This makes having someone on PC duty an absolute must if you want to do shit efficiently. It's a hell of a lot better than being stuck in the van in Phasmo, if that's what you're wondering. And probably the most important thing about all of this is that you can always use your walkie-talkie to help give real-time information to your team members, and that is so cool. Also, there is some lore shit that you can pick up to read about on the ship later, but watch Shrakes' video instead. So once all of that's said and done, once you've overcome every single obstacle, once you've collected every piece of scrap you're able to, you have got one last stop to make before you reach the deadline of your quota, the company building. So once you land here, you just plop all the shit that you want to sell over here, ring the bell to have Captain Hook take all the stuff. There's also something for those that like hentai in here too. And then the cycle repeats itself the next day, with a fuck ton more you're going to need to sell, and that's the entire gameplay loop of Lethal Company. Man, this game is just fucking awesome. Everything, and I do mean everything, is spot on. This is literally the ultra kill of co-op horror games, from the visuals to the gameplay to the sound to just everything. It's such a joy to play either alone or with a bunch of friends to dick around with. And the best part about all of this is that this game has just got such a loyal following already, with stuff like animations, fan art of both kinds, music, and so much more. Even to the point where so many of these fans have made some fucking cool mods that allows for more customization options, animations so you can tell your buddies to go fuck themselves or hit the gritty on them when you're the only one that made it out alive, to even new monsters and game mechanics. This game is just perfection, and it's also so cheap. But that's also why I'm kinda worried about it at the same time. Fall Guys, Among Us, Phasmophobia, and BattleBit Remastered. These are some of the games that were so popular upon their releases, but as time went on, they just kind of faded away. Yeah, they're not dead because they've still got a small community of people keeping them alive, but in terms of their mainstream appeal, you don't hear as many people talking about them nowadays. And that is something I'm kind of worried is gonna happen to Lethal Company. Yeah, it might be popular right now, but in due time, how many people will still be playing it? As of writing this video, the game is still in early access, and you gotta remember this game is only being developed by one person. And with the existence of these mods, the community surrounding this game is already adding more content at a rate that I don't even think the creator himself is able to keep up with. We do still have that lore, which I believe will get further fleshed out as the official updates gets rolled out, but aside from all of that, what more can Zeekers do to keep this game from falling into obscurity? I don't honestly know, but I am happy that the game paid off in the end, and that it showed a massive titan of the gaming industry that making a good game rather than a sloppy rush job yields better results. But all I can do at this point is wish Zeekers all the best, and while you're still here watching this, go and get yourself a copy of Lethal Company. We need to keep this game alive for as long as we can.